Welcome back to Hudson Appliance for another episode of Wicked Good Food. I'm your host, Matt Williams, and today it's all about having a little steakhouse at home. I'm not a huge fan of going to the steakhouse that often because they're pretty expensive, and oftentimes I feel like, I could make that almost as good, but once in a while you just can't beat going. And one of my favorite things to get is a big wedge salad with lots of blue cheese, lots of bacon on it. So we're gonna make a wedge salad. We're gonna make some beef. I have this beautiful hunk of bone-in ribeye here that we're actually gonna sear in a nice cast iron skillet and then bake the rest of the way. This is gonna be served kind of family style. We're gonna do some asparagus and some baked stuffed potatoes. We're gonna get started with this hunk of beef though. So what I'm gonna do is first season it really liberally with salt and pepper, fresh ground black pepper. And I have some, you can't smell it at home, which is a shame, but I have a little bit of bacon cooking here to go on top of our wedge salad. So I'm going to take this and just flip this whole guy over here so I can season the other side of the meat. And we'll do the same thing. The salt, goodly amount of salt, pepper. Then I'm being a little careless with the salt and pepper so that some of it ends up down here in the pan, because now I'm going to grab it and I'm going to get all the sides covered with salt and pepper. Now this big hunk of meat, this is about 3 pounds. I'm going to take it, I have a cast iron skillet here that's been preheating a little bit. It's not crazy hot because we don't have a hood in here and I don't want to smoke up the whole place, but we're going to let that start to brown just a bit, and I'm going to turn the heat up a bit more on it. We're going to let that hang out. Now, one of the things we're going to put in with our steak is, well, we're going to put some butter in there, and we're going to baste it with butter. We're also going to put a bunch of whole cloves of garlic in there. I have some that are already done. I'm going to take and show you how to do a couple more. So what I'm going to do is just cut off the end of the clove, just that kind of woody end. We'll do the same on this one. I'm just going to give it a little tap to loosen the skin. And just pop the cloves out, just like that. All right, now those are gonna go in that pan, but we're not gonna do it yet. We're gonna let us get some color on our steak first. All right, bacon shooting at us a little bit. So I want this to get relatively crispy, so I'm gonna let it go just a bit longer. Because I like a good crunch on my bacon on my salad. And then we'll drain it onto there in a moment. One of the other things I said we're going to do is asparagus. So I have here a whole bunch of asparagus. I'm going to take and I'm going to trim off the end. Now there's nothing that says you have to trim off a specific amount. It all depends on how fresh your asparagus is. So if it's super fresh, you just cut it, don't trim anything off if you just got it out of your garden. But if the outside's a little dried out, the ends, just cut off the ends. These have great flavor, they make great soup, they're great in a stock, they're great in all sorts of different things. We'll move those off to the side. Now I'm going to take just a sheet pan, take the band off now. I left it on because it helps to keep them all together. And I'm going to season this with some oil, some salt and pepper, and that's it. These are all set. I'm just going to stick these underneath and we'll get those in the oven in a bit. Taking a look at our bacon here. Our bacon is just about done. So I'm going to take this and just bring it out onto this paper towel. It's all right if you don't get it all the last bits of bacon, because trust me, it's going to get used. Now, I'm going to take a look at this. Oh yeah. Nice color on one side. We'll flip it over. We're going to work on getting some color on the other side. Let's spin that like that for you. Oof, that smells awesome. So I'm going to leave these tongs right there for now. Get this out of the way. Now, like I said, we're going to make a big wedge salad with blue cheese dressing. I want to make a big blue cheese dressing. So that's what we're going to start making right now. We're going to start getting some of the ingredients together for it. Relatively simple. I like to use sour cream. So I've got about a little less than a cup of sour cream there. And then we're going to use some mayonnaise. Some sour cream and mayonnaise, about half and half. I'm going to come back and take a look at this, see if this is ready to be moved on to another side. And yes, it is. So I want to get all these sides. You can see that beautiful bone sticking in there. It's going to help give it some flavor as we cook. Oh man, that is going to be good stuff. Then I want to take and add the juice of some lemon. A little bit of acidity is really important. That sour cream has some acidity to it, and so does the mayonnaise actually, but we're going to add a little bit more. I'm just going to squeeze it into my hand in case there's any seeds. This seems relatively seedless. I just want to mix this together a bit. Yeah, that looks good. And then, as anything, salt and pepper. We're going to add a little bit of onion powder. A little bit of garlic powder. Come back over to our steak. Now I've got to stand here and actually hold this because I want to get, the more color you get on this, the more of a sear you get, the better flavor you're going to get. All that flavor is going to go into your pan. It's going to get pulled off by the butter that we put in there. All that flavor is going to end up on your steak. It's very exciting. All right, that's a good little sear. So, why don't we add some bacon fat, because, well, why not? Then we'll add our whole cloves of garlic right in here like this. And we're going to add a little bit of butter to it as well. So I'm going to let this melt for a second. We'll come back. I'll show you how we're going to baste this a little bit with the butter, how we get this ready to go in the oven, and we'll keep working on our dressing. All right, so we cleaned up our mess a little bit. Our beef is sitting here, just kind of simmering away in that little bit of fat that's in there. What I'm going to do now is pick this pan up, make sure it's not too hot, and I want to be able to get in here and get this bacon fat, and that garlic and that butter. And I'm going to put in a little more butter because that's not quite enough. You never have too much butter. I just want to baste this steak and let that butter just go all the way into all the crevices we've got there. We're going to do this a few more times, then we're going to pop it in the oven. In the meantime, we're going to move on to our dressing. So in here we have our lemon juice, garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, mayonnaise, and sour cream. So we're going to mix this together just a bit. But then comes the most important part, which is blue cheese. Now, your blue cheese dressing is totally dependent on the type of blue cheese you want. This is a gorgonzola. This is one that I particularly like. I'm going to cut off this little bit of the rind that's on there. But find a blue cheese you like. Some are so pungent and intense, and if you want your dressing to be that way, use that one. All right, now I'm going to cut it a little bit smaller. Now, if I'm typically making blue cheese dressing, I like to use my immersion blender and just blend the whole thing all together. But that's all right. We'll put this in here. We're just going to beat this up. We might have to mash it a little bit. Just keep beating it up a bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let this just sit. We're going to let it sit until we're ready to serve to make sure there's a chance for all these flavors to kind of mix together. We are going to add a little bit more blue cheese on top of our salad. So you might not want your dressing to be as intense, but I like a lot of blue cheese in it. And that looks pretty good. I'll have to give that a taste in a moment. Now back to our steak here. Oh man. We keep basting this a little bit more. So now if you had a steak that was, maybe only an inch thick, you could cook the entire thing this way. Just keep basting it, keep an eye on it so the outside doesn't brown too much. But this is thick, this is 4 inches plus. So we're gonna bake this to finish it. But this is still gonna add a lot of great flavor to it. All right, now that we've basted it enough, we're gonna take and put this in our oven. But in our oven, we have our baked potatoes. So I'm gonna take those out because they're done. So I put these in just before we started taping so that they'd be done. This guy can go right in, just like so. So this is a convection oven. It's set on 350 or so. We could crank it up a little bit higher, but we're gonna leave it where it is for right now. So our dressing's looking all right. We're gonna get this out of our way and just let it hang out. If we weren't gonna eat in 20 minutes or so, I would throw that in the fridge. But since we're not gonna, it's not gonna be sitting out all day, we'll leave it right there. Now, we're gonna take these potatoes here and we're gonna cut them right in half, all the way in half, each one of them. And they're hot potato, just like the saying goes. And we're gonna work with them while they're still hot. You can let them cool off a bit, but they're a lot easier to scoop out while they're still hot. And I'm gonna take the insides and put them into this bowl. Now, I wanna put a little bit of butter into the bowl because I'm gonna want butter in with our potatoes. And when we go and put this in there, we're gonna find that our hot potato actually is gonna melt our butter for us. So we're gonna scoop out the insides of these. So we leave a shell, but we wanna try to leave a little bit of potato on there. We're not looking to make a potato skin, really. I kinda like that contrast in texture. If there can be a little bit of the potato left, and then you get the soft mashed. Now, whenever I'm making these, I always try to make a little bit extra on the potatoes, just in case I don't have enough filling. That way you can use an extra potato and no one feels left out. But if you don't have enough filling, that's probably telling you you're not adding enough stuff to your filling, because you can load it up with. This is one of those times you get to use all those different dairy products together. We're gonna put butter and sour cream. We can put some heavy cream in if you guys want. Lots of cheese. We're gonna use 2 different kinds of cheese. Beautiful, just like that. So I'm just gonna move these here, get all the last little bits. And we want to hit this with some pepper. And a little bit of salt. You want to be careful with the salt because we're going to add some cheeses to this, some other things that do have some salt in it, so you don't want to overdo it. So I want to make sure my butter gets melted. And it is just about melted and emulsified in here. And we're going to go ahead and add some sour cream. And we'll add some heavy cream. We'll mix these together. Now, not that you ever have extra bacon laying around, but if you happen to cook too much bacon for your wedge salad, this is another great place to stick some bacon. Now what I have here is a mixture of Asiago and extra sharp cheddar cheese. There's one we did, some that we grated up for a show that we did earlier, and we had the Asiago left over. I wasn't planning on using it, but we had it and it's gonna work out great. So I'm gonna put in about half of this. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and taste a little bit of it. Oh yeah, that's very good. I mean, how could it not be? So what we're gonna do now is just simply take our potato skins and add our potato back to it. So you can make them overflow a bit. This is something sometimes you see them all fancy. People put them in a pastry bag and pipe them back in. But that takes too long for me. I want to eat potatoes. That's another reason why I like to make a little extra filling, because I have trouble not eating the filling, because it's so good. It's like ultimate mashed potatoes loaded with stuff. So I'm going to finish filling up these. We'll get these ready to go in the oven. We're actually going to put our asparagus in the oven, our potatoes in the oven, and we'll move on to the next step with our salad. So we finished stuffing the potatoes. Those are ready to go. Had to sample a little bit of the stuffing, of course. It was very, very good. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to make some hollandaise sauce. It's a sauce that you don't see many places at all anymore, but one place you do see it is in steakhouses. So what we're going to do is we're going to start. I have 3 egg yolks here that I separated. We're going to put those in this bowl, and I'm going to put them over this simmering water here, and I'm going to break these up a bit. I just want to whisk them together a little bit. Now we're not going to make the actual true traditional hollandaise where you make a reduction with with white wine and white wine vinegar and add all those other things to it. But we're going to make a relatively quick and easy one that's going to do exactly what we want, which is going to bring more butter to us when we put it on our asparagus. So what we're doing here is we're actually cooking the eggs slowly, because our goal here is to not make scrambled eggs. Everyone's made scrambled eggs before. You put them in the pan. As you start cooking, they get thicker, right? They go from a liquid to a solid. That's what we're looking for here. But we want to control that while we're stirring so that the eggs, so that the eggs don't scramble. And what we're looking for here is we want them to reach 165 degrees, which is the temperature that makes eggs safe to eat. These aren't going to quite get there probably. That's why we're going to make sure we use some nice fresh eggs. And we're going to treat them well. We're not going to sing to them or anything, but we're going to make sure that they don't sit out at room temperature overnight or anything like that. And what I'm looking for, the way I'm going to know that these are cooked enough is that they're going to actually, I'm going to be able to go with my whisk and lift it up, and I'm going to be able to see a figure 8 in the bowl, and we're almost there. All right, and over here we have spit, and that means some butter, so I'm going to shut this off because that butter's all melted. And what we're going to create here is something called an emulsion. So an emulsion is when you take 2 things that don't usually stick together and we make them stick together. Now if you can get a look in here and see how thick this has gotten. See how I can make a figure 8? And the beginning of the 8 is there by the time I get to the end. That's an indication that you've cooked it enough. So I'm going to take this off the heat. Just put it down for a second. Then I have a wet rag. It's relatively wet. I'm going to roll it up like I'm going to whip somebody, but I'm not going to do that because that's not nice. But I'm going to make a little circle with it. What that's going to allow me to do is to put this down here, and it's not going to, although the whole cutting board moves, it's not going to move as much. Let me move this out of the way. I'm going to actually move back to this spot so you guys can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. So we'll put this right here. How cool is that, that I was literally just boiling water on there and I can put on this rag and it doesn't catch on fire or anything. That's the beauty of induction. It's still warm because we were just cooking on there. All right, now here I have butter. Some people like to use clarified butter where you remove the milk solids and you remove the liquid from it. I don't. I like all that. If you use only fat, you're going to have to end up adding some sort of liquid to this anyways because it's going to be too thick. So I like having that in there. So I'm going to just slowly, very slowly in the beginning, put this in. And you can tell when it's incorporated because it kind of looks greasy on top, like a little oil spill. But once you get it all emulsified in there, you won't see that little bit of grease anymore. I'm going to go ahead and do some more. So hollandaise has a bad rap of being very, very difficult to make. It's not that difficult to make, really. It just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, and know what you're doing. It definitely has a rap of being unhealthy for you, and that's hard to argue with, because essentially we're taking fat and we're adding fat to it. So it's egg yolks and it's butter. But oh, boy, is it good. So as you get a little farther along in the process, you can add your butter a little more quickly. Now looking at this is a little bit too thick, or it's definitely too thick. But I haven't added all my ingredients yet. We're gonna add some lemon, because once again, we wanna add a little acidity with our fat, just like we talked about with our blue cheese dressing. I do wanna add a pinch of salt to this. And I'm gonna add a little bit of hot sauce. I like hot sauce. All right, now we'll go ahead, whoops, and keep adding. So this mixture can actually take, I actually forget how many it is, but I usually shoot for about 3 ounces of butter per egg yolk. But I think you can pretty much double that, and it'll still hold together, but that gets to be a little much. So I'm gonna take a couple minutes. I'm gonna keep adding more and more butter to this until I use almost all the butter that's here. We'll finish this sauce, and we'll get ready to move on to the next step. All right, welcome back. So I'm checking out our steak. It is perfect. Let me take this out. Oh, take a look at that. So we're right where we want to be. We're about 125 degrees on the internal temperature. One thing I'll point out is this: if you look at this, the probe goes in at an angle so that this part of it right here stops in the middle of the meat. That's how you get the most accurate temperature. Now, what's going to happen is there's all this intense heat on the outside that's trying to push all those juices to the middle. This needs to rest. We're going to let it hang out here for 15 or 20 minutes. Those juices are going to redistribute back into the meat, and that way we're going to have a nice juicy steak. While that rests, we're going to go ahead and do our baked stuffed potatoes. So these are ready to go, other than I forgot to say that I wanted to put some cheese on top. So I'm just going to put the remainder of the cheese right on top. Not worrying too much if some falls in the pan, because that's the best stuff, the stuff that falls in the pan. It gets all caramelized. So this is going to go right in the oven. While we're in there, we'll grab our asparagus that we did earlier. That can go right in the oven. Now, while that rests, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part of making our salad, which is pretty simple. We're going to take a big head of iceberg lettuce here, which I trimmed the outside leaves off. I'm going to give it a bang on the table, pull out the core. Then I'm going to cut it in half. And then this half I'm going to cut into a wedge, but I'm going to make a pretty big wedge. What we're going to do is we're going to serve this whole meal kind of family style, so people can hack off their own piece. So I don't want to put a whole half of a head of lettuce on, but I am going to put a little more than a quarter. So we're going to put this big wedge of lettuce right on like that. Any unsightly leaves we'll kind of pull off. We'll move this out of the way. And the other thing I want to put on there is I want to put on some tomato. You've probably heard me say it before, but I'm not a huge fan of tomato seeds. So I'm going to cut this in quarters right through the core here. Cut out the core. Then I'm just going to use my finger and remove the seeds. Now this is totally a textural thing to me. The seeds actually have a pretty good amount of flavor. They have some of those acids that actually make us love food. Some of the stuff that goes into MSG, the glutamic acids. But I don't know. I don't like the way they feel, so I'm going to take them out. So we'll dice these up. Now we have everything done for our meal. So once this rests, we're going to pull our other stuff out. We'll put our hollandaise sauce on our asparagus. We'll get Arthur up here, finish our salad, and we'll see what he thinks. Hey, Arthur.
Hey, Matt. Welcome back.
Thanks again for having me at Hudson Appliance. Today, all about steak.
Steak, okay.
Like you walked into a steakhouse. My favorite things at a steakhouse, and I don't go to a steakhouse very often, but when I do, I'm pretty specific. I like a big wedge salad.
This is my favorite salad. I love them.
Good. I hope you love this one. This is a homemade blue cheese dressing we just made.
Oh,
It came out really, really nice. So the idea here is that this would be a meal for like a family of 4. So that big salad that you could share, this big hunk of beef. We roasted some asparagus, made some hollandaise sauce,
that looks delicious.
made a baked stuffed potato, sour cream, cheese, heavy cream, I don't know, probably some other stuff, butter, that's the other stuff. So lots of good dairy products in there.
All right.
And then we have this, which it was a bone-on ribeye.
Okay.
It's about 3 pounds. We seared it, real hot pan. We added some bacon fat and some butter to it and all these cloves of garlic, and we basted it and all that.
Oh, wow.
Then when we were done, I took and cut the bone off, and so now the whole steak is leaning right up on that bone just for the presentation of it.
Okay.
But no one's cut into it yet. We've been waiting for you.
Let's dig into it.
So yeah, we'll cut a little bit off.
You cut it, I'll eat it.
Sounds like a good package. All right, so we'll cut this. And look at that.
That's perfect.
Oh.
Just the way I love it.
Beautiful. So this is something you could carve at the table. People could break off their own little hunks. I'll just cut a couple little strips here so we can give it a whirl.
All right.
Get right in there.
Wow. Cooked perfectly, and the taste, very, very good.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, really.
Very good. You get a little bit of that smokiness from the bacon and some of that garlic.
Delicious.
Try one of those little pieces of garlic if you're a garlic lover. There were more, but I ate them earlier.
Ooh, that's good. Very good.
So I don't have another knife, but we can use this one because we're all friends here. We'll cut a little bit of the salad off.
Now, you said you made this homemade,
Homemade dressing, yep.
okay.
Relatively quick and easy to make.
All right.
Like that?
Nobody's getting any more of that. I'm having the rest of it.
Fair enough.
That is excellent, excellent.
And then the asparagus with the homemade hollandaise sauce.
Yep.
That's finger food if you want. Just fold those right in half.
Very tasty hollandaise. Very good.
Then the last piece here, and I'll cut a bit off here,
All right.
is our twice baked potato, which are still quite hot, so be careful. 'Cause they just came out of the oven. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off of these.
Oh.
What do you think?
Now that's
Wicked good. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this most recent episode of Wicked Good Food. We hope you enjoy watching it as much as we enjoy making it. We've been working really hard to try to make the show better, and I think we're improving as we go along. We have lots and lots of ideas for new shows in the future, but one of them we'd really like your help with. We'd love to do a show built totally around viewer questions or viewer ideas. So, if you have any questions or ideas or stuff you'd like to see on the show, please share it with us. There are a few different ways you can go about doing that. You can send an email directly to me at matt@wickedgoodcookbook.com. You can send an email to Donna, who's at Hudson Appliance, and she's the one that helps put this whole thing on, and that's donna@hudsonappliance.com. Or you can leave a message or just check us out on Facebook on the Wicked Good Food page. You can find us on Facebook. Once again, whether this was your first episode you've ever watched or you're a faithful viewer, we appreciate your support. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully you can help us out with this project we're hoping to do. Thank you very much. And from my kitchen to yours, have a great day.